Good evening, viewers. The national capital was burning for the third consecutive day. As rioters got a free run, the police were seen looking the other direction, letting mob take over in various parts of northeast Delhi. 10 people have been killed, 135 injured, 100 vehicles torched, 80 shops damaged, burned, 35 houses vandalized. On your screens are the visuals from our national capital. Residents living in fear, some of them contemplating leaving that area for now because things have become so bad. On camera, we have caught how the Delhi police is letting the city burn under their watch. And these are the visuals from the third day. Watch how these goons with sticks and weapons and lathis have taken to the streets, are gathering and assembling in large numbers, converting into angry, violent mobs despite the fact that Section 144 has been imposed. These visuals on your screens are from Mojpur, 9:45 a.m. this morning. No fear. Look at the way they're just roaming around openly with absolutely zero fear of law. The tire market that was attacked first on February 24th was again attacked today. Shops were vandalized before they were set ablaze. Hundreds of shops, we are told, have suffered damages because of this fire yesterday and today. And as rioters pelted stones, attacked media, the police watched on. Houses were torched, shops and streets were vandalized. Our reporters, our brave reporters, were on ground, in fact saw a young man being beaten up black and blue. And I want to specifically start with this sequence. This 2.5 minute sequence that shows you exactly what's gone on again and again and again in the last 3 days. Watch how the police reacts, viewers. This will show you the truth of what's going on in Delhi.
अरे छोड़ दो यार, छोड़ दो। अरे यार मार देंगे उसको। अरे मार दोगे क्या? अरे छोड़ दो यार, मर जाएगा वो। अरे सर जाओ ना, सर जाओ ना, आगे जाओ ना सर। सर शॉट्स लेते रहो, सर जाओ ना, सर शॉट्स लो, सर जाओ आगे। सर लो ना, सर शॉट्स लो, शॉट्स लो ना। पुलिस जा रही है, छुड़ा रही है, सर शॉट्स लो, सर शॉट्स लो, सर शॉट्स लो। हाँ और ले लो ना सर, पुलिस जो जा रही है छुड़ाने के लिए वो भी लो ना। अरे यार पकड़ लिया, लड़के को मार दिया इतना ज्यादा। हाँ पुलिस अब दौड़ा रही है। सर शॉट्स लेते रहेगा, रिकॉर्ड करते रहेगा सब कुछ। बेचारे का सर खोल दिया। अरे मारा। हाँ सर खुल गया उसका। सर अभी आएगा ये बाहर, पूरा शॉट्स लेना। सर आ रहा है ये बाहर, पूरा शॉट्स लो इसका आते हुए, जो भी बोल रहा है। सर इसको बाहर ले आओ, इलाज करवा दो, नहीं मार देंगे इसको। बेटा बाहर आ जा, बाहर। अरे अरे सर शॉट्स लो, रिकॉर्ड। भाई कहां से हो भाई? उधर मत जाओ, उधर मत जाओ, उधर मत जाओ, उधर मत जाओ, इधर आओ। इधर कहां से हो? कहां से हो? कहां से हो? हाँ बुरुजपुरी। कहाँ जाना है अब? मुझे वहीं तुम एक गाड़ी में बैठाओ, किसी गाड़ी में बैठ करके इसको निकाल दो यार। सर इन लोग के उधर मत जाना, उधर भी लड़के खड़े। ए नहीं सर मारो मत, मारो मत। जाओ 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 जाओ। सर इसको हॉस्पिटल में पहुंचा दो। सर इसको हॉस्पिटल पहुंचा दो, वहां पर लड़के और मारेंगे इसको। सर
Did you see the distance between where a reporter and the policeman was standing and where this man was being beaten up? There's hardly any distance. And the police took a while before they stepped in, pulled him out and then just let him be. And our reporter was actually telling this man and warning this youngster to not run in a specific direction because there were other rioters standing on that side and he could have just gotten into further danger. Just what was the police doing? That's the question I'm going to be asking tonight. But I want to first up go across to Alok. And it's extremely difficult in the face of such violence unfolding in front of you to hold your ground and to continue doing your job, which is to capture this, which is to ask the police to look at what's happening and to continue asking the questions and recording, Alok. And you did that, and you asked your video journalist to not stop from doing his job. But what was the Delhi police doing, and just how far away, what was the distance between where you guys were across the barricade and where this was happening?
Well, Tanvi, this all happened in front of my eyes when I was in fact reporting from the Brijpuri area. Brijpuri area is one of those areas which is affected very much and in fact affected badly. Brijpuri is located between the Gokalpuri and also the Karawal Nagar area. At that point in time, there is a stretch and in fact we showed in our cameras also that there are people who are standing outside their lanes. At that point in time, one person came and he was just passing through that lane. They somehow caught him and then they started belting him very badly. At that point in time, I immediately saw the police personnel because there was a barricading. We could not move to that place, but definitely we will ask the police because they were carrying weapon as in their hands as well and they were in the riot gear as well. So I requested the police personnel, sir, please go inside and at least save this person. Then first of all, they did not hear, they did not listen to me. But when I shouted many times, then they went inside. And by the time they just caught hold of that person, they have already belted him very badly. And in fact, there are police personnel who are seeing that all these things are happening. So it's just a few seconds it all had triggered, and we just managed to just shot all these things, and that person was in so much trouble and in so much of shock that he was not able to listen to us properly so that we could give us some help, give him some help, and he immediately ran from that place. However, what we are getting to know that later after that some police personnel shifted him to the hospital. So this all had happened, but what we can say, Tanvi, after watching this whole sequence, that there is complete police inaction, and what we are witnessing in the past 3 days as well. In fact, various places we saw that police personnel are standing at one side and stone pelting is kept happening. Whether in some places where the police is in shortage in number, but despite that they are not trying any kind of initiative, not taking any kind of initiative to stop that stone pelting, and that is happening in various parts of the northeastern part of Delhi. And in fact, I have also covered various riot cases in the past as well. 2014 riot, that is Trilokpuri violence, I covered. In that time, I saw that police's action, because in just 2 days that police managed to in fact calm down the situation with the help of the Aman committee's members. But today what we are listening, today Alok Kumar, who is joint CP Eastern Range, he is coming out and saying that with the help of Aman committee members, they are trying to pacify the situation. And after 2 days, today is the 3rd day, now they are taking their help. So why the police was sitting for the 2 days and why the police was not doing anything at that point in time when the whole violence started on Sunday? Back to you.
Yes, absolutely, Alok. And, I must say the way both you and Ayushman have been there for the past 2 days, bringing us all of these reports, constantly moving from one place to the other, because it's very, very difficult even for the reporters. There have been 3 different instances where the media has been attacked, where reporters and video journalists have been attacked, beaten up many times. Both Alok and Ayushman were also questioned who they were, why were they standing there, which is why they constantly kept moving around, but kept recording what they were seeing. wherever possible with their cameras. Sometimes it wasn't possible with the cameras, but they kept sending us those updates, and that's very essential. That's the only way we can sit here tonight and tell this story. I want to play out one of the reports that Ayushman got for us in the day before we bring him live. Now, this is a point again in Mojpur where barricades had been put up on the street that was leading to Mojpur that had witnessed violence on Monday. Despite the imposition of Section 144, we could see people gathering on the other side from where Ayushman was standing. He couldn't go too close because they were threatening to hit back. Here is that report.
We are currently on the stretch of the road that leads towards the Mojpur and Babarpur, and there is no change in the situation except for the fact that now we are being told that another stone pelting incident is coming to light from that side of the Gokulpuri villages, and also there is a tire shop which locals are saying that there is a fire out there. If you see on the other side, this is the barricading which has been put by the Delhi police, and clearly if you see on the other side of the road there is a gathering that is there on the road, and this is supposed to be 144 implemented out there in this area, and then this is happening. No police official, no police personnel, no constable. One constable was here last time we spoke to, and now he's also gone. Currently, no one is present at this spot right now. And this is the stretch which leads towards the metro station of Mojpur and Babarpur, and where we saw the earlier morning visuals of all those stones and bricks lying on road. So currently, this is the situation here. Nothing has improved, but Delhi police officials are saying that soon the deployment will be taking place in this area as well. Currently, whatever the situation was, what we were reporting to, that is there, and police officials haven't been deployed so far.
Ayushman joins me live right now. And Ayushman, that was the story for, the first few hours that both you and Alok were on streets today. That it was very difficult to spot Delhi police personnel, despite the fact that through the night we were getting inputs about the unrest that was going on. Shops had been set ablaze. There was violence that was unfolding. Still in the morning, there were barely any men in uniform.
Yes, Tanvi. In fact, when we went to Babarpur and Mojpur, that stretch, in fact, even before the police arrived, we were there. And despite the fact that 144 was implemented, there were people with helmets on, with their face covered, and they had sticks in their hand, and they were threatening not to record any videos. And later in the day, we saw that consequences. Many of the TV reporters as well as the print reporters were heckled, they were beaten. This was not only limited to the by-lanes, Tanvi. In fact, when we went to the areas in Mojpur, where even the Delhi police personnel were not present, and the fire which was there in the tire market, that was again the fire broke out, and there was no policeman, there was no fire official, and we went there, and we were surrounded by the mob who did not want us to report and said you should go and report from the areas where the other side violence has taken place. And this was not only that point, Tanvi. In fact, when Delhi Chief Minister pointed out the porous boundary fact, we went to Ghaziabad near to the Yamuna Vihar stretch of the road, and we went and checked as to what was happening. You were surprised to know that almost 3 barricades were put, and the barricades were lying there, and the police officials were sitting. Despite knowing the fact that this road leads towards the violence hit zone, the police officials were sitting. There was no frisking being done, and right from there was a 5 kilometers distance where this Mojpur incident was taking place, and Delhi police officials were not checking anyone. Leave aside the fact that UP police officials were not even present at that point of time. So this was the situation today. The Delhi police officials clearly can claim on paper that they were having enough numbers to deal with the situation. But what we have seen today, that there were people present in by-lanes, and they were clearly not afraid of Delhi police. No law and order fear was there. And Delhi police, at about 1 o'clock, they were not present here. In fact, right now I'm in Seelampur. And here also behind me at the police station, there was one vehicle torch, Tanvi, and heavy security deployment took place. In fact, we heard the tear gas shelling was being done, but not to forget the fact that it only happened in the evening, later part of the evening. Prior to that, we saw the kind of violence and the visuals that we brought to you. It was extremely difficult for us, also for the Delhi police, because they were outnumbered clearly. The barricadings where we were standing, the police officials were not present there, and only later in the day, the convoy came and the police officials were present in large number, Tanvi.
All right. Alok and Ayushman, continue to stay on with us because I will keep coming back to you since you two have been our eyes and ears on ground bringing us all of these reports. But let's also say good evening to our experts who are joining us right now. With me in the studios, Vinay Tiwari, our managing editor and senior journalist, Barkha Dutt. I've also got Dr. P.S. Pasurichar, retired DGP of Maharashtra, joining us. Ajay Raj Sharma, former Commissioner of Police, Delhi and DGP SF. Abhijit Ayar Mitra, journalist, also joins us this evening. If I can just start with Mr. Ajay Raj Sharma and ask him, Sharma, 3 straight days of violence, even if I discount the build-up, the tension that was there on Saturday, and every day it just seems to be getting worse. Do you think Delhi police has done a decent job of trying to control the situation?
I won't say that. They must have tried, but see, I am away from the Delhi police for the last 18 years, and I have no connection with them. But like any observer, I am getting the news from the TV and the newspapers, so I can. My impression are only from these channels and newspapers. See, when any riot takes place, if there is intelligence about likelihood of a riot, then there are plans to check that riot and how it will be done. There are lists of communal agitators. There are lists of the antisocial elements. And when a riot becomes imminent, these people have to be rounded up so that they don't influence the future actions by the people. Now, I do not know how much intelligence they had and to prepare for all this. But from what I've seen on the TV, it appears that they were not fully prepared for it. And in a routine manner, some policemen were posted here and there, and they became insufficient, and they could not take that action which was required. I also feel that this curfew should have come one day earlier. Instead of enforcing it today, it should have been enforced yesterday. Then some of the deaths may have been prevented. And many people who have got injured may not have got injured. It also appears to be, even by seeing your TV, that there is not sufficient force on the ground. You see, putting a group of 10 policemen or 12 policemen where the number of those who are pelting stones and taking to violence is very much higher than them. It suggests that there should have been more force.
Yes. Well, Mr. Sharma, you know, the Delhi police seems to insist that basis the information they got, they had enough police, they deployed the police personnel. Now, I could understand if that was on day 1, but by day 2, the government itself was claiming that this was a pre-planned conspiracy and that, you know, this was being timed to the president's visit. In that scenario, then they should have stepped up on the deployment and on their intelligence gathering. Neither of it seems to have happened, or they had the intelligence and didn't do anything about it. Just to also point out, it's still Section 144 in all of these areas. There hasn't been an official communication so far from the Delhi police on curfew in any of these areas. It's Section 144 that continues to stay. Barkha.
I just wanted to say we've got senior retired police officers on this program. I would like them to respond to the missing police commissioner of Delhi. Where is Mr. Patnaik? And what I mean by that is, at a time like this, you need your police chief to be front-facing this crisis, to be out there talking to people. I don't think in the last 72 hours, we have heard from Mr. Amulya Patnaik. Now, I know the point could be made that, you know, he's busy, he has a crisis to handle. Well, then someone else who's senior, you don't send your public relations officer after 3 days of the capital burning to answer questions and de-escalate anxiety. That's the first point. The second point is, this business about not having enough people on the or men on the ground. I'm sorry, with respect to Mr. Ajiraj Sharma, sir, you know this. I'm no one to say this to you. It's all in how the deployment is done. The key areas, the sensitive areas are identified. You ratchet up numbers where you need to. You have that intelligence. You have the junior home minister of the government saying that this was a pre-planned conspiracy. So why was all this build-up allowed? There have been very, very inflammatory speeches that have been made, by politicians included, which have literally been a call to violence. I have personally heard speeches where slogans like "clear the streets, otherwise clear the country" have been made. I have seen this with my own eyes. That's the first point. The second point is there are any number of videos caught on camera now where the police is in some cases standing by while the crowd is pelting stones, and
Yes.
in one horrifying case, the police is moving with the mob to attack another crowd.
Yes.
And the history of riots in this country tell you that riots happen not just because of incompetence, but I'm really sorry to say this, in sections they happen because of willful complicity. The police chooses to look the other way. It's not always helplessness.
Well, the question will have to be answered by the Delhi police. Why in all of those videos are they standing by and watching? Now, look at the video that's running on the screens right now. This is from Mojpur, 3 p.m. The mob is at it, pelting stones. The street is covered with stones and rocks. And the Delhi police is right there in the same crowd. There are men in uniform, and then there are stone pelters. They're all there. Yesterday, you had a gunman roaming on the streets who allegedly fired 8 rounds before the Delhi policeman, who was facing him very bravely, overpowered him. But at some point, they let him go because then he went absconding and he was only arrested today. So that's the kind of conduct we've seen. Now, Mr. Pasricha, if you could come in here, and the question that Barkha was also raising about the conduct of the police commissioner in such a scenario. He's not held a single briefing. The only comment that came just a couple of hours ago was also to clarify on a PTI story that said that he had told the Home Ministry they didn't have enough police personnel. And he denied that story. But that's all he has said in 3 days.
Well, Tanvi, I would like to analyze the whole situation on a larger canvas. Last 3 months plus, Delhi police has been struggling with various situations. Started with JNU, then Jamia, and so on. And then that was the beginning. Later on, it switched over to Shaheen Bagh, where it stayed for more than 2.5 months. Now, I personally feel if I were the CP, I would have done, first step I would have taken was, I would not have allowed on the very first day the protesters to sit on the main road. I would have allocated them the place for peaceful demonstration, no problem. It's their right. They should have been somewhere on the footpath or some such area without affecting the road, because it was, irritating and annoying, because the people also have the right to movement. No, that was thing going on. Then last few days, the situation started, taking a turn when some, politicians also started coming and provoking the situation through their very, very explosive speeches, very senseless, talk which was not desirable in the national interest. No, that we leave it. No, about last week, it came from Shaheen Bagh, it went into metro station, blocking of metro station. That should have rung the bells for the police that this is time they have to take very, very effective action. This is not a simple thing, it is going to spread. That should have been the first indicator. It is not going to remain non-violent. So from there, 4 days back, 3-4 days back, it started spreading into other areas. Now, with the Trump visit, it cannot be just a mere coincidence. I'm confident that the politicians have played their role in provoking the situation and, and allowing and and instigating them to indulge in senseless arson and vandalism. And since yesterday, the situation had become very violent, very, very explosive, and that too for a capital of Delhi, of the country. Now, 144, the simple professional principle is you promulgate 144 only when you are very confident of effectively enforcing it.
Correct.
If you cannot, then never do that 144. That's the first fundamental principle of professional policing, which was not done because I see even in the open areas, not in the narrow lanes and by lanes, in the open areas, the rioters are, going amok and, indulging in even in firing, beating. I'm sure they must have used a drone or something for capturing these accused people. But that was the time police should have resorted to firing. It's a very, when the things are becoming communal, there are written instructions from the government of India that the moment the communal situation becomes explosive, do not wait for that lathi charge and all that. You have to go straight for firing. They should have done that. That was not allowed. Now, 144 had lost its value. It emboldened the people to indulge in more vandalism. And that is what, you are facing it since yesterday and today.
Right.
And how many people have been arrested? How many people? And the preventive arrest, how many have been made?
None.
And we have been watching in the last 3 months, as Mr. Ajay Sharma ji have mentioned, that on the TV also we have seen many times in the last 2-3 months, the police is sometimes acting, a silent spectator. They do not have any direction. They do not know what exactly is to be done. Sometimes I know if they take action, it will be called overaction. If they don't do it, it will be inaction.
No,
but somewhere,
and I want to say
guidance,
this also.
some direction has to be given. You have to be very clear what you want.
And Dr. Pasricha, I'll also say this. This by in no way is a comment on the capabilities of individual Delhi police personnel, the fact that whether they can or cannot do. I'm sure they're all very, very capable, but if only they're allowed to take action. I don't know what is going on if they don't want to take action, if they've not been given clear instructions on what to do, or if there are not enough of them on ground, which is why they're not moving in and acting on time. When you've seen far too many of these instances, this is not the first time we're seeing a riot unfold in the national capital. How has it taken 3 days?
Look, I'll just take 30 seconds extra because this issue just deserves that importance. I'm very happy to see Mr. Ajay Sharma as part of our panel for 3 reasons, and I'll tell you why. In my personal opinion, Mr. Ajay Sharma was possibly one of the finest commissioners Delhi police ever had. He did not come from the AGMU cadre, he came from the UP cadre. He was brought in because Delhi had a problem where they couldn't manage their own affairs, then they needed somebody who has got very wide field experience. I mean, he was always either in districts or ranges in UP. He's seen the Wild West, much more than we can ever imagine. Mr. Sharma will bear me out on this. If there is any police force in the country that is possibly the most well endowed on a comparative grid, it is Delhi police. Mr. Sharma just mentioned he left the force 18 years ago, and I can tell him an update. I'm sure he knows about it. In the last 18 years or so, the Delhi police's current strength stands at 78,956. It has 15 police districts as opposed to 8 that used to be there when he was around. It has 5 specialized police stations and 150 district police stations. The Northeast district where the violence has happened is now being carved into 2. There's a separate Sahadra DCP district separately and a Northeast district separately. We have 5 special commissioners. We have about 15 joint commissioners serving. There are 3 or 4 vacancies as well. And there are plenty of additional commissioners and DIG and lower rank officers as well. If this police force does not have adequate strength, no other police force in the country has. Apart from that, and again he'll bear me out, there is something called the CP Reserve that is always stationed very close to the Yamuna banks where this riot happened. There are DAP battalions that are available. There are RAF battalions that are always available in Delhi. There is BSF, there is CRPF, and the MHA is just an hour distance when central forces can be rushed in if you feel the shortage for it.
Right.
Even if I take into account that Donald Trump's visit diverted some bit of the officers there, 25,000 odd policemen are always on VIP duty in Delhi. Still, there is no logic for the rest of the 11 districts in the city to not have diverted an officers there. So there is no argument, and I think I'm happy that the commissioner finally denied that there was any shortage of manpower. I can also tell you, Mr. Sharma himself has overseen riots in this very district, in Seelampur, on the very same road. He'll bear me out on that, where we were there and we saw it, and how those riots were controlled was very different from what we've seen in the last 3 days. From Mohalla committees being activated, to peace committees being activated, to the elderlies of the community being activated, to a special branch unit which has ACP communal. Mr. Sharma will weigh me out again on this. There is a designation in Delhi police called ACP communal, whose only job is to keep a track of the antisocial elements that he's talking about. If you can't, and Seelampur is part of a district that is the most sensitive in the national capital. It's the most crime prone and the most sensitive district. If your special branch did not know this buildup was happening, there is something seriously wrong, because we as journalists knew there was something happening.
They knew. The government is saying that this was a pre-planned conspiracy.
Strategy. Now, in considering all of this, I have absolute, Delhi police is way better than what has happened in the last 3 days. It is probably one of the best forces in controlling riot and law and order, because they do that on a daily basis.
Correct.
It's the city of the national parliament. Protests and mobs come every time when a parliament session is on, and they are very used to large mobs. This is not a force that doesn't know how to do this. I am astounded at how the Delhi police has handled this, in this case in the last 3 days, as well as in some of the previous cases that Dr. Pasricha was mentioning when they happened in Jamia or in JNU. They've shown some bit of ineptness, some bit of slowness, and some bit of passiveness in not going on for adequate amount of preventive arrests, in terms of rounding up of suspects that you know can cause trouble. A lot of people who have illegal weapons in these areas like Northeast District have not been rounded up. And even in the follow-up action, in terms of not imposing curfew so far, merely enforcing 144 in an area that's very difficult to police for 144. It has dozens of lanes and by-lanes where you cannot enter beyond a point.
Yeah.
So it's ineffective unless you put a 100% curfew.
You know, before I take this point forward with Mr. Sharma, I just want to quickly bring in Abhijit as well. Abhijit, because fact of the matter is we can't say the forces didn't know what was happening, what was building up. There were literally announcements and plans being made across social media. You know, build-up that was visible, two groups which were gathering their own forces to show whether one side had more numbers or the other side. And that itself was 4 days ago. And for 4 days, this has gone on. Delhi police has to answer to something tonight.
So I'm going to make 5 points very, very quickly. And I know the last time I brought up this point, people in your panel in the studio got very upset. But remember, we are a third world country. We can have police officers on this panel claim about the extraordinary professionalism of the police. But one of the classic hallmarks of a third world country is very low human capital and bad training. So any police in India, and Delhi police included, they will either sit tight and do nothing, or when they go in, they go berserk. So basically, you're either going to have what happened at Jamia, or you're going to have what happened at JNU, which is one where somebody goes berserk, another where in JNU, nothing is done. And remember, ever since the blowback that they got on what they did in Jamia, they have been in passive mode. Remember this, because public opinion is very, very important in these kind of cases. My own friends in Shaheen Bagh, one girl, Gunja, was held hostage for a few hours, roughed up. Another two were beaten up on TV, Raghav Avasthi and Shantanu Gupta, and the police did nothing. At best, they took very lateral, peripheral action to get these people out. Number one. Number two, again, classic of a third world country, and excellently trained police force, Delhi being all that good, these are all relatives. Remember, we are a third world country. Operational issues. Was there intelligence? Yes. However, was that intelligence fused? Remember, this country is notorious for not fusing intelligence with timely, actionable responses ever. It has certainly not been something that this country has been known for, and the Delhi police probably even less so. Now, when we come to operational issues, all the points that the previous panelists made are all fine, but the example you yourself used of Shah Rukh, all right, gives you, see, adequate personnel is what? The number of police personnel will always be less than the number of protesters. You then have to start giving shoot orders, because the equalizer against greater numbers is either pellet guns or it's bullets. Now, if you don't give them that, then you are going to see the same response. What did that Delhi policeman do when that boy Shah Rukh came and pointed a pistol at his head? Nothing. What could he do? Ultimately, if Shah Rukh had shot him, he would have had to take the bullet. That's about it. So remember, all these esoteric points about, there was adequate people. Adequate people is not the same as adequate to the force opposing you at hand. Now, again, you raised a very important point. Why were the police seen with one set of protesters? Almost it seemed as a cooperative action. Remember, here again there is an issue. When you are dealing with one set of protesters who outnumber you, the last thing you want is you want to take on both sets of protesters. Now, I can tell you I am a security hawk. I supported the Jamia Millia action. I would have liked to see the same action in JNU. I would have liked to see the same action in Shaheen Bagh. Sadly, we all don't get what we want. Now, when you are at a numerical disadvantage and you have not been given shoot orders, then you know what you do? You pick your sides. That's about it. That doesn't mean collusion. Let's be very, very clear about it. That is unfortunately the reality. People on the ground have to improvise this. They don't have the luxury of sitting in TV studios like we do and philosophizing, intellectualizing and theorizing these situations. And finally, there is Trump in town. So let's not forget that. So even there would have been a huge PR issue with even giving orders from the top to say, "Jaake goli maro." That I don't think they would have ever agreed to it. And the rather worrying historical analogy here is Tiananmen Square, because Tiananmen Square, what happened, the horrible events that happened were postponed because Gorbachev was visiting Beijing in 1989. But I think if things have gotten this bad now, they're just waiting for Trump to leave, at which point there will be a crackdown. And then knowing our press, what's going to happen is that everybody's going to go berserk and say, "Oh, well, fascist state. Karo bhi, you're damned. You don't do also, you're damned." So this is, unfortunately, there's no easy way out of this, because this is a perpetual, this isn't a fact-based, there is no baseline,
let me
there
take
is no
some of those
methodology.
points that
It
you
is just
raised.
whatever you feel at any given point of time, they're fascists or they're something else.
Okay, what the points that you've raised, barring the last one, I'm going to ask Vinay to specifically respond on what he's saying. What do you expect the Delhi police to do? If you look at two sides, you can't take on both the sides at the same point. There you will be outnumbered, so you pick one side. The Delhi police picked one kind of protesters and just went along with them for their own safety because they didn't have orders to shoot.
Well, look, I think probably more than me, Mr. Sharma and Dr. Pasricha have much more experience in answering what Abhijit just mentioned. All I can say, having had 28 years of covering riots and mobs in Delhi, in many parts of the city, all I can say is this. Look, yes, Abhijit is absolutely right. The number of people who are on the streets will always be more than the number of police you have in command. But remember, the police is in uniform and it is trained to handle this. It's not an untrained army of people who's just out on the streets not knowing what to do. Everywhere in the world, the number of cops are less than the number of protesters and mobs. In Hong Kong, there's a protest on for 6 months, right? They've had struggle with it. They've not really opened fire yet, just for one instance. And they're also struggling with it. So there is no doubt about it that the number of protesters will always outnumber the number of police. But they're trained for it, and there are various techniques for it. Mr. Sharma alluded to one of them, which is preventive action. The police has the local police, especially the SHOs of the area, and Mr. Sharma, I remember, had emphasized a lot on foot patrolling and the last mile beat policing, because that's a very effective local intelligence system. Every beat constable knows कि उसके इलाके में बदमाश कौन है. These are the kind of things that are always used to minimize the impact. Nobody is saying the police can prevent every riot 100%. It's about minimizing the impact of it and curtailing the longevity of a riot. I think in this case, the larger question is that the police, instead of curtailing the longevity of this, has only actually ended up making it worse in every passing way by a response that doesn't seem to be in commensuration to the capabilities that they have. Yes, everything is relative, but on that relative scale, Delhi police is possibly one of the best ones. And I say this with all confidence and experience of having dealt with them for many decades.
Well, I just want to point out one thing. An order has just been released by the government posting in S.N. Srivastava, who's of the 1985 IPS cadre, as Special Commissioner for Law and Order in Delhi Police. I don't know if that would be a direct consequence of what we've seen in the last 3 days.
So S.N. Srivastava is an AGMUD cadre officer who was sent on deputation to the CRPF. He was the additional DGP there. So I'm not sure we should read too much into this, because he was
about repatriation from the central deputation.
So he's been repatriated
to the national capital region.
I mean, deputations are always tenure bound, so it is possible that this was routine and regulatory. Yes, if it's been announced today, maybe there is more to it.
Okay, Mr. Sharma, do you want to add in and weigh in on what Vinay is saying? What possibly could the police have done in such a situation?
No, Mr. Pasricha has said the correct thing, that they should not have enforced 144 if they did not have the force. What we are trying to say that they didn't have the force, they did not act because of that. But 144 has to be ensured only when you can enforce it properly. Secondly, curfew, I think, has been brought in late. It should have been announced yesterday.
It's still not
Sir,
got in,
it's
sir.
A lot of people who have
Mr. Sharma, there is still
been
no
injured
curfew. There is no
Beg your
curfew
pardon?
yet. There is no curfew yet, sir. There is no official
still no
order for the
curfew?
curfew. No, not yet.
Well, I saw in the
There were reports suggesting in three of
I
the
saw it
places
on
there
the
may be
channel that,
a
curfew has been
curfew.
imposed.
Yes, there were reports that suggested in three different places there may be curfew, but the police personnel then responded to our queries saying, well, Section 144 is pretty much there, so what else do you need? It is curfew-like.
See, the biggest thing what I feel is absent is the will to curb these things. There is no will. And if there is, it has not been, the police has not been given that type of order. And hence the police is dilly-dallying and they don't know when to take action, when not to take action. It is very correct that when the protesters are very much more than the police,
Right.
there is no other way but to use force. And that has not been used till now. So
Okay.
these are the few basic mistakes that have taken place. Otherwise, Delhi police is a very good police, and I have commanded that police. I know they can be very effective, and especially in crowd control, they are very good. But this time, of course, they have been found wanting.
Okay, Barkha, is it also possible that because we had another big story unfolding in the national capital and President Trump in the city, that they are holding off on stricter crackdown?
I mean, I think that is quite possible. I don't know what approach they will take. I've just got an update on my phone that a protest site in Jafrabad has actually just been cleared. So I think the police is now moving into a lot of these other areas. I don't know about Shaheen Bagh specifically, but a lot of the other sort of copycat protest sites that had come up in other parts of the capital. So the police has just cleared Jafrabad of protesters. And I do think that Trump being in town would influence decisions maybe related to, for example, calling in the army. I don't know if they will do that, to do a flag march. Everything doesn't have to be like a physical, violent crackdown. But I do think that Trump being here would have influenced the set of options and the timing of exercising those options. But I just want to make one point, and that is a little bit beyond the police. You know, Abhijit made the point that he would have liked to see a more strident crackdown of the kind that we saw in JNU and Jamia. I disagree, but I'm not even getting into that argument. I'm saying the police can't be held responsible for what governments should be doing. And what I mean by that is the police handling of this is one part of the debate. But if you look at a Shaheen Bagh, the Home Minister did say he was ready to talk to anybody who wanted to talk. And I think if I were in the government's shoes, I would have called a delegation of representatives of women from the Shaheen Bagh protest site and started a round of dialogue so that before Donald Trump got into town, that protest site had been cleared, because some sort of dialogue, because the police can't conduct that dialogue, only the political establishment can. Why not talk to protesters who've been protesting for like what, over
But he
2
said
months?
his doors are open, you can come anytime. There's also a Supreme Court appointed panel that's currently trying to do that job.
No, I agree. But the Supreme Court appointed panel is trying to get them to shift from the protest site. I'm making a completely different point. I'm not talking about whether they should have been protesting at the bus stand or, you know, whether they were obstructing roads. I'm simply saying that if the intelligence feedback is that things are festering, policing is one part of that approach.
Okay.
But I do believe that in the heart, you know, in one big part of your capital, there's a major protest on. You can disagree with it. I'm not saying you have to endorse it, you can disagree with it, but you have, you know, you're the people's government. Talk to the people.
Abhijit, would you think that that's perhaps also a part of it, that this is missing, that we allowed this to fester for so long, the day after day, and it just came to a point where both sides simply clashed? I mean, all the previous instances have actually been violence by one group of locals versus the police. This is actually the first one where there are two sets of locals clashing with each other and the police standing by.
Correct. Correct. So, you know, I have been saying this for a very long time that, you know, Shaheen Bagh, even though it was largely peaceful, the very act of occupying a road choking access which is illegal and that being tolerated for so long incentivizes illegality. Because people whose livelihoods get destroyed by it see that, well, there's no consequences for illegality. The police isn't doing anything to protect us, so we're going to take things into our own hands. On the other hand, the people who are doing the blocking also take all the wrong lessons because, the standard thing is, well, we've done it here, then why not? Basically, nobody cares now anymore. It's getting off the headlines. Let's escalate it a bit. This is a very, very, very dangerous thing because in this country, we never apply the first principles of carrots and sticks to policing. Second, there was a point that was made. I agree with Barkha that, what is the government doing about this? Again, remember, we're a third world country. This is not a place where intelligence gets fused, where decision makings, I have seen decisions taken at the ministerial level, at the, extrapolated, of course, where, again, the first principles of proper policing simply aren't applied. Now, you can keep hammering on ad nauseum that, the Delhi police is fantastic, it's better trained. And an example of Hong Kong was brought on. Remember, you can never remove police training from the economic, sociological, anthropological context. Hong Kong has a per capita income of $64,000 per capita in PPP terms. Understand the kind of training that goes on there, the incentive there to keep it below a certain threshold. Delhi's per capita income is $5,100 per capita in PPP terms. You are not going to get any kind of decent police training. So they may be better than, say, Jharkhand police or Manipur police or Tamil Nadu police, but they are certainly nowhere near world standards of any kind of thing. Forget investigation, forget any of that, including in riot control. So let's be very, very clear about all these points.
Okay, I'm running out of time, but very quickly, if I can take that to Vinay, because we've had those conversations, Vinay, and it's not about a direct comparison, but simply to say, to what extent do the police personnel, even in the Delhi police, get that training, barring the senior officers? If a team of these personnel see something that looks like an abandoned bag / bomb, would they know what to do?
No, listen, just to clarify, I think Abhijit is completely misunderstanding. I'm not comparing Delhi police with Hong Kong police at all.
Yeah.
I'm only saying, in any situation, I was agreeing with him, the riot number of people on the streets are always more than the number of policemen who are handling it. That's a globally standardized situation. You will never have that in inverse proportions. There's no comparison at all. All discussions that we do on Mirror Now are only about comparing India with India. I don't like comparing apples and oranges, and that's not what we're discussing and debating at all. Yes, we are a very poor country. Yes, we are third world, but that's our reality. I mean, we can't change the economy and wait for it to change for us to get better at riot control. The fact of the matter is, this is neither the first riot that has happened nor the last. Delhi has seen much worse riots. 84 was a classic example. There are many more commission reports on what complicity led to the situation going out of hand. The army came and fixed the problem with just 2 platoons, right? There is much more in policing than just the act of a danda man standing on the street. There is something called trust. Mr. Sharma, and I don't know if you'll remember it, he once very famously went on record during a Seelampur riot to tell all of us in the media. I don't want him to actually endorse because he may not remember it, but as a commissioner, I remember in his office in PHQ, he had told us that a lot of times violence happens in Seelampur because the local population doesn't trust the local police. He had the courage to say that. And trust in the local police or the SHO between people also plays a part in mob control and riot control. So it's a way more complex issue. It's not about numbers, it's not about weapons alone. It's a complex situation.
Trust has broken down.
And the trust has broken down. In Delhi, that trust has broken down severely in the last
The last time police at least moved swifter when it came to bringing in and roping in the locals, the senior citizens, and getting the Aman committees together to, reach out to the youngsters, the protesters, and ask them to calm down. But that's not happened this time. Until this afternoon is when we actually got the first set of information saying, yes, now they're going to bring in the Aman committees and the, locals and the seniors and ask them to help. This should have happened on day one. This should have happened, if not on Saturday, on Sunday before things went out of control, which is why we are continuing to ask this question. Why is it that the Delhi police has allowed rioters to run amok for 3 straight days? 10 lives have been lost, including one head constable. Somebody needs to answer, how did we allow this to happen? And why is it even now it's not under control? Even now, till early evening, there were instances and reports coming out of stone pelting, of police personnel and paramilitary forces being attacked, of journalists Reporters and video journalists being attacked, brutally beaten up. What's going on? Is the Delhi police so exhausted with what they've been doing for the last 3 months? Or have they simply forgotten how to deal with the riot? I'm going to continue asking some of these questions on the other side. Stay with me. This is a special 2-hour broadcast putting the spotlight on the national capital. Stay tuned to Mirror Now.